Mantras of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, a wheel behind the heart, a lid over the mind, divide us from the divine. Love and devotion rend the wheel. In the quietude of the mind, the lid thins and vanishes. With always our love and blessings, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, Question and Answers of 1954, page 458, question. Sweet Mother, here it is written, the final victory is certain. If it is the divine will, why is it not each victory certain? For this, our Divine Mother says, no, this is not what it means.
La plus dure, la plus rigide, la plus étroite, la plus suffocante. J'ai touché un ressort tout-puissant qui m'a projeté d'un seul coup dans une immensité sans forme et sans limite, où vibrent l'essence d'un monde nouveau. At the very bottom of the unconscious, most hard and rigid and narrow and stifling, I struck upon an almighty spring that cast me up forthwith into formless, limitless vast, vibrating with the seeds of a new world.
And Divine Mother says, no, this is not what it means. It means that finally the victory is certain. Whatever may be the course of events and the ups and downs and the difficulties and the different issues of the different conflicts, at the end of the curve, one is sure of the victory. For the divine is sure to be victorious. It may take a longer or a shorter time. I have said in English, I use finally, that finally no human will can prevail against the divine's will. Here, finally means in spite of everything, what we may call the divine patience. In spite of all divine patience, there is given a moment when human will exhausts its strength and the divine will prevails. We always measure time by our small human duration, but naturally the divine forces do not have the measure as ours. And what seems to us long or uncertain is for them the most direct way, in spite of everything, to reach there. In the given set of circumstances, it is the most direct way to reach the goal. This goal is the expression of the divine's will, whatever it may be. So, what seems to us, for instance, a long, tortuous, uncertain road Seems so because we do not see the whole picture, because we only see a tiny part which is in our proportion. Our vision is very short behind, very short in the front. I mean the ordinary human vision. For example, there isn't one man in a million who can say what is going to happen to him 10 years hence, though he may make many plans and projects and yet try to organize his life, but he cannot say with certitude what will happen because his vision is very short. The divine's vision is not like that. If human vision is very short, limited in space, very linear, this means that things follow one after other, while human vision is very short, very limited in space, very linear. This means that things follow one after another, while the vision of the divine is a global vision which sees the problem in all its totality, not only on the surface but in the depths also, and contains all the elements of the problem and resolves it without neglecting any point. But man follows a straight line, and all that escapes his straight line and which does not care for would not be done if it were he who decided things. Whereas the march of the divine is a global march which takes in the whole universe in its entirety and goes forward on the most direct road in relation to this universe and this set of circumstances. And the most direct road may be circular. It is not necessarily a straight line, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother. When we are faced with a difficulty, does this mean that the divine is trying to make us conscious of the defects of our nature? For this, our divine mother says, if you face it, yes. That is, as soon as you are in front of a difficulty, if instead of giving way like a coward, you begin trying to conquer it, then you may be sure that the divine is behind you. But if you are cowardly, the divine will not be there. That is, your cowardice cuts you off from the divine, but if you resist and want to conquer, you may be sure that the divine will be there to help you. There is not the shadow of a doubt about it, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother. If a difficulty comes, does this mean that the divine is trying to make us conscious of the defects of our nature to show us that we have defects? For this, our divine mother says, but think of what you're saying. If by having a difficulty you become conscious, you see, it does not mean that the divine created the difficulty to make you conscious. Your question seems to say that. But it isn't true. One can say, from an altogether impersonal point of view, that the adverse forces, which of course are responsible for all difficulties, that the adverse forces are tolerated in the world as far as they serve to make the world completely conscious. This indeed is true, but it seems to me a very human way of putting it, because it would be said that as long as the world is not perfectly conscious, this allows the existence of these adverse forces. That is, it conditions them. The world's unconsciousness conditions the existence of these forces. So one can as well say this as they say that the forces are tolerated as long as the world is unconscious. These are two very opposite ways of saying the same thing, and neither is perfectly true, but both contain something correct, yet something is quite different. And in fact, if you want to say the thing exactly, one can say things are like that because they are like that. This is the only way of not making a mistake. If you say the world is like that because it is like that, then you are here, you're sure you're saying something approximately correct. Approximately. But if you try to explain, you will see an atom in the world and will take this atom for an explanation. Our Divine Mother says, human mind is linear in its actions. It sees the ideas one after another. Naturally, when one speaks, it is even 10 times worse. One is obliged to say one word after another, and this becomes frightful. But most people, almost all human beings, think linearly. They think one thing after another. They can't think of many things at once. Only very few individuals are capable of thinking of, say, about 12 things or 20 things at the same time. You can try, you will see it. You think things one after another, and again one after another. The succession may be fast, but it is a succession. It is a very different kind of vision, a very different functioning, not of the mind, but of the intellectual powers, which can see things in their totality and all at the same time. But even when you seem like that, if you want to try to describe it either by writing or speaking, you can't put down everything at the same time, nor say everything at the same time. You are obliged to use one word after another. So it becomes necessary. It destroys the truth of the thing. It becomes linear, which means the truest things cannot be said. Everything one says is always a diminution of the truth, says our Divine Mother. Next, words taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers of 1955, date 5th Jan 1955. This talk is based upon Sri Aurobindo's Basis of Yoga, Chapter 3, topic In Difficulty. Question, Sweet Mother, how can we create the attunement of the nature with the working of the divine light and power? For this, our Divine Mother says, first you must be conscious of the kind of attunement you want to realize. You must first become aware of the points where this harmony does not exist. You must feel them, understand the contradiction between the inner consciousness and certain outer moments. You must become conscious of this first, and once you're conscious of it, you try to adapt the outer action, outer moments to the inner ideal. But first of all, you must become aware of the disharmony. For there are many people who think that everything is going well if they are told, no, your outer nature is in contradiction with your inner aspiration. They protest because they are not aware. Therefore, the first step is to become aware, become conscious of what is not in tune. To begin with, says our Divine Mother, most people will say, what is this inner consciousness you're telling me about? I don't know it. So obviously they cannot establish any harmony if they are not even conscious of something within which is higher than their ordinary consciousness. This means that many preparatory stages are needed, states of awareness before being ready for this harmonization. Our Divine Mother says you must first of all know what the inner aim of the being is. The aspiration, the descending force, what it receives, everything must become conscious. And then afterwards, you must look at the outer moments in the light of this inner consciousness and see what is in tune and what is not. And then, when you have seen what does not harmonize, you must gather the will and aspiration to change it and begin with the easiest part. You should not begin with the most difficult thing. You should begin with the easiest, the one you understand the best, most easily, the disharmony which seems most evident to you. Then, from here, gradually you will go to the more difficult and more central things. Why do you happen to twist your ankle, says our Divine Mother? Question. Not to be depressed means, sweet mother? For this, our Divine Mother says not to be depressed. It's extremely important. Depression is a sign of weakness, of a bad will somewhere. A bad will in the sense of a refusal to receive help, a kind of weakness that content to be weak, one becomes slack. The bad will is obvious because there is a part of your being which tells you at that moment depression is bad. You know that you shouldn't get depressed. Well, the reply of that part which is depressed is almost shut up. I want my depression. Try, you will see it. You can try it. It is like that, says our Divine Mother. And then later one says, afterwards, I shall see it. For the moment, I want it. Besides, I have my reasons. There you are. It's a kind of a revolt, a weak revolt, a revolt of something weak in the being, says our Divine. Next question from page 175. Question, sweet mother. To prepare the path means for this. Have you never had the feeling in your life that you were on the way towards something? One does not have the impression that when he is born, he begins to set his feet on a road which is going to lead him by a curve through his whole life. That's the image. So, if you take the path which must lead you to a spiritual realization, it means that all your actions are deliberately going to be directed to this goal. And so, our Lord Sri Aurobindo says that there is a bit of the way which is under the control of the reason, and that reason, if you follow it, helps you to go forward here without making mistakes too often. For it is quite remarkable that in life you start without knowing anything, and that at each step you take, you have to learn. And that usually you come to the end of the path without having learned anything very much, because too often you make mistakes and you have nothing to guide you. Ordinary people enter life without even knowing what it is to live. At each step, they have to learn how to live. And before knowing what they want to realize, they must at least know how to walk. As we teach a tiny little child how to walk. In life, one has to learn how to live. Which people know how to live? And it is through experience, through mistakes, through all kinds of misfortunes, troubles of every sort, that gradually one begins to be what is called reasonable. That is, when one has made a mistake a certain number of times and has had troublesome consequences from this mistake, one learns not to make it again. But there is a moment when the brain is developed enough and you can use the reason well to reduce the number of mistakes, to teach you to walk the path without stumbling too often. The immense majority of human beings, says our Divine Mother, are born, live and die without knowing why this has happened to them. They take it. It is just like that. They are born, they live, and they have what they call their joys, sorrows, and they come to the end and go away. They came in, went out without learning anything. This is indeed the immense majority. There is among them a small number of people called the elite who try to know what has happened to them, why they are upon earth, and why all that happens to them. Then, among these, there are some who use their reason, find a way of walking properly on the path much faster than the others. These are reasonable beings. Now, there is a handful, big handful of people who are born with the feeling that there is something else to find in life, a higher purpose to live, that there is an aim. They strive to find it. For these, the path goes beyond reason to regions where they have to explore either with or without help as chance takes them, and they must then discover the higher worlds. But there are not many of this kind. I don't know how many of these there are now in the world, but I have the impression that they could still be counted. So, for these, it depends on when they begin. Now, there are beings, I think, who are born, whose rational period of life may begin very early when they are young. It may last for a very short time. Then they are almost immediately ready to set upon a new, unexplored path towards the higher realities. But in order to set on these paths without fear, without any danger, one must have organized his being with the help of a reason around the highest center he consciously possesses and organized in it such a way that it is inwardly in his control, and he has not to say at every moment, I've done this, I don't know why. That happened to me, I don't know why. I don't know, I don't know. As long as it is like that, the path is somewhat dangerous. Only when one does what he wants, knows what he wants, does what he wants, is able to direct himself with certitude without being tossed about by the hazards of life, then one can go forward on the suprarational path fearlessly, unhesitatingly, with the least danger. But one need not be very old for this to happen. One can begin very young, even as a child of 5 can already make use of reason to control himself. There is enough mental organization in the being in these little lots who look so spontaneously irresponsible. There is enough cerebral organization for them to organize themselves, their life, nature, moments, actions, thoughts with reason. There are some little ones here of this kind. They are not like that, but there are some. There are some like that here. I know them. So, if these were taught how to use their reasonable properly, how to use their reason properly while still they are young, they could be ready to start on the great adventure. They would gain much time, but one must not set out on this road with a baggage of impulses and desires, for that brings along all kinds of serious disturbances, says our Divine Mother.